Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
I'm Hannah Elliott.
And I'm Matt Miller. This is Hot Pursuit. Coming up on today's podcast, we talk with Tesla's chief designer, Franz Von Holzhausen.
This is a very well-timed conversation, I do have to say, Matt. Tesla's been in the news. Because
they have been in the news. And he addresses the stories on the Bloomberg about door handles, but also talks about designing what I really consider to be a timeless vehicle, the Model S.
You know, when you pointed out during our conversation that it's been around for 15 years now, my first thought is time flies and that's insane. But also, you're kind of right. I mean, this is one of the few vehicles that really hasn't had basically any noticeable updates aesthetically since then. And it fits right in. I mean, I see them all over here in LA.
All right, we're also going to talk about our viewer emails because we get a lot of emails from viewers that have the same complaint about me.
Which we will discuss. Well, I've got thoughts on that.
We'll go over it.
We'll go over it.
And we do want you to write to us. Remember, our email address is hotpursuit@bloomberg.net. So first, let's talk about what we've been driving and what we've been doing over the past week. I have had the opportunity to get off of my Harley Davidson and get back on a Ducati. You know, I've had a long history with Ducati. I've had 15 of them, including the original X Diavel S, which was like their first attempt at a feet-forward cruiser. But since May, since I picked up my Harley Davidson Fat Bob, I've only been riding the Hog. So recently, my buddy Jason Chinook, who runs Ducati of North America, he hooked me up with the X Diavel S, the new version of the V-twin cruiser that I had. But this one has a V4, 170 horsepower, and looks like worlds different from the original X Diavel S.
Now, I know Ducati is claiming this is a bold new chapter in the line. Obviously, the bike looks very hot. Do you agree? Is this a bold new chapter, or is it more like a slight step forward?
So I am not in love with the way it looks. Although I wasn't.
Why?
Well, it just looks to me sort of in a way like big and brutish, and Ducatis I prefer to look sleek and almost feminine.
The Ferrari of motorcycles, if you will.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it's got, for example, it's got a passenger seat for a passenger with a big old butt, you know?
What are you saying, Matt? Are you against big butts?
No, I like big butts, and I cannot lie.
Please.
But I will say it just doesn't really make sense to me on this bike. And coming from, I had the old X Diavel S, like I said, which looked more like kind of a rebel, like American kind of out west cruiser.
Yeah.
Looked a lot more like what something Keanu Reeves would ride. And this thing looks very futuristic, which I'm just not in love with.
I kind of love a futuristic motorbike. I mean, that's like the whole Matrix-y, like you're in sort of a long flowing black leather jacket and it's like you're wearing wraparound black glasses and you're on a bike. I mean, that's a look.
I actually didn't think about that. Keanu was in, obviously, the Matrix.
Exactly.
And did ride a Ducati 996.
See, this is like the vibe. I'm kind of curious if your months of riding a Harley have changed your perception and changed your preferences a little bit.
Well, I don't think they've changed my aesthetic preferences because I still am in love with Ducati's Panigale. I still have a couple of Ducati Monsters, classic Monsters that I love. The Multistrada is my favorite bike of all time. But riding the Harley has changed the way I ride bikes because it's got so much torque down low. I keep it between like 2,000 and 5,000 RPM. Like 5,000 is the absolute upper limit.
Yeah, you're not getting uptight about anything.
No. And so I get on this bike yesterday. I picked it up at the Hudson Valley Motorcycles in Austining, and I'm riding it back to my house in Scarsdale. And it took me a second to get used to the fact that it has like an 11,000 red line. You know, you live in the upper revs, and I wasn't there. So I was like, this sounds kind of weird. This feels kind of weird. And when I did open it up, it was kind of scary how fast it is. My Harley Davidson is pretty sporty for a Harley, but it's nothing compared to this. And I went back and I looked at horsepower to pounds. I always think it's the easiest to understand. How many pounds is each horse pushing? And so in a 911, in a Carrera S, a new 992.2 Carrera S, you have 473 horsepower. It weighs about 3,400 pounds. So each horse essentially is pushing 7.2 pounds. And that turns out to be almost exactly the same as my Harley. Because the Harley has 95 horsepower.
Interesting.
But it weighs like 650 pounds or 675 or something. So those two are pretty similar. The Ducati blows them out of the water.
What does the Ducati weigh? 500 pounds?
The Ducati weighs about 500 pounds exactly.
Okay.
I think it's like 505.
Right. Okay.
And it has 168 horsepower. So it's pushing, each horse is pushing 3 pounds.
Wow.
Right?
You're flying.
Absolutely.
You're flying.
And this isn't their like track bike, you know? This is like their poser Boulevard Cruiser. And so it was a little bit scary at first as I was riding it home. And then I got used to it, and it's like I'm reminded at how it feels to pilot a vehicle that you can pretty much put anywhere you want at any time. You know, forward or backward, because the brakes are also phenomenal. It turns in like a dream, at least compared to a Harley Softail.
Sure.
And it just made me feel really confident, really happy.
Is it worth $30,000?
It is very expensive. That's true. And if it's the kind of thing that you're into, yes, it's definitely worth $30,000.
Yeah.
Would I pay that much? No, I would take that money and buy a new Multistrada.
Could you? Okay. And so my other question is, could you ride this for a few hours every day and be okay physically?
Yeah, you can, because it's feet forward. But that's another thing I was thinking. Like, so obviously that's why I bought a Harley Davidson. I want that sort of feet forward cruiser position. It's relaxed, it's chill. But on this kind of bike, on a Ducati, I really want my feet under me.
Yeah.
Because you want to be able to
tuck them in,
push it into corners.
Sure.
Yeah, put your weight on your feet, dig.
Get your knee down.
Well, not that for me.
No. Okay, no, we don't want to go crazy.
For others. In any case, very cool and a different, interesting, and like variety is the spice of life, right?
Totally.
So
How long do you have this bike?
I'm living the dream. I have it I'm gonna probably keep it for a week.
Okay, so that's fun.
Yeah.
You'll have your fun. I mean, do you want to talk about something on the very other side of the spectrum?
Yes.
2 old Rolls-Royces?
Yes.
Oh.
Which ones do you have again? Which Rolls-Royces do you have again?
We have some Silver Shadows from the 70s and a Silver Spur from the 80s in 88. And then a 2-door Shadow, which is an early Shadow that was done by Park Mulliner Ward, which is a early division that was working with Rolls-Royce at the time. So kind of, call it 70s and one from the 80s, 4-door, mostly Rolls-Royces. And we've talked about them. These are not expensive cars. They're fun to drive. They've got a
They're not expensive to buy.
They're
initially.
not expensive to buy. But I am good. I was like, do I even want to talk about this? And I'm like, yeah, I have nothing to hide. Look, sometimes it's a challenge, and it is a slightly dysfunctional relationship. And the irony of it all is, none of them were drivable.
No.
On Monday.
Are you serious?
Well, look, we sort of rotate through. Obviously, you can only drive one car at once. And on Monday afternoon, I had a dentist appointment in Pasadena. And so I thought I would take mine. We share some of them, but this Silver Shadow in particular is mine. It was given to me as a gift. And so it's a great car. Honestly, no issues, some slight electrical stuff. But, it's been doing this thing. It's been doing this thing where after like 15 or 20 minutes of driving with no warning at all, it'll just lose power. And I fixed that by quickly putting it into neutral and then restarting it. And it restarts fine, and then I go along my merry way. And it's not that big a deal. It's not a big enough deal.
Sounds kind of dangerous.
Well, if you know what's happening, it's not scary when you're on the highway. If you didn't know what's happening, you might get a little worried, but I know what's happening. So it's not a big deal. I just go with it. And it wasn't enough that I thought I want to give the car to Barry or Charlie for a week or two. I want to be driving it. I don't want to mess with it being in the shop. I travel too much. There's too much other fun stuff to be doing. Anyway.
Also, I imagine, I don't want to pry too deeply, but
you can pry.
Charlie Agarwal, right? He's the
Agapoo. Yeah, Charlie Agapoo.
He's the famous Rolls-Royce mechanic.
He's been here since
the LA area.
60s.
I imagine the shop rate is not cheap, right? And especially getting parts. I just can't imagine the repair bills.
It's not as expensive as a couple grand. It's not like thousands and thousands. Call it a couple grand once to twice a year. It's not thousands and thousands of dollars. If you're imagining tens of thousands of dollars, it is not that. It's like a couple grand a couple times a year for this car.
I fear like the 10, 20, $30,000 bills of a Bentley, like an 80s Bentley.
We've never had a 10 grand. We've never had anything more than a 4-digit bill on that car. And usually it's low. I wonder,
some of the guys from Rolls-Royce are coming in here today. Thank you for hooking that up.
Yes.
How do you think one of your older Rolls-Royce cars, and I don't mean in terms of acceleration or braking, but like in terms of the magic carpet ride feel, how do you think they compare to a new Rolls? Is it the same kind of vibe?
Very similar. Honestly, very similar. And I even made this point to Magnus when he came to wait for the tow truck with me this last time, just as a sign of moral support because he's so sweet. The car, even though it kept dying for no particular reason on the 134 out to Pasadena, it would start up again, no problem. And it was silent and totally smooth. There's no, it's a beautiful driving car. It just has taken to dying. And then, of course, when I pulled in, I did make it to the dentist's office doing my little trick where I just throw it into neutral and then restart it. And then, it's fine. By the time I had got to the dentist and I stopped it, there was some smoke. There was enough smoke that a couple people helpfully had to tell me that my radiator was out, which this is not a radiator issue. The car was not overheating. This is something different. But it's like not the time for one was a man, one was a woman, to tell me that my radiator's out. It's like, well, it's not. And don't talk to me. I don't want your help. All that to say, to answer your question, I think very similar, very smooth, very quiet. If you want to avoid driving like a jerk, buy a Rolls-Royce. It calms you down. It might be like a Harley.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's the same. That's very similar. Now let's talk about some of these emails we've been getting, and we'll get to the concerns about my rude, boorish style in just a moment. But first I want to talk about the protesters at the IAA, the IAA in Munich.
Yes.
What did we learn?
So we got a great email from Mike, who was so nice, and he actually was in Munich on his way to the open space of the IAA show. And Mike, thank you for enlightening me that I did get the protesters' goals wrong last week. Mike said that their actual main thing is about climate change and the effect motor vehicles in particular are still having. And they're very opposed to subsidies for the industry, as well as the damage already done by existing technologies. So basically, they're protesting that they feel the political parties are too cozy with the industry lobby. And so they're pushing for actual tighter regulations on the automotive side.
Right.
So thank you for clearing that up, Mike.
Here.
Yes, we are.
I love that Mike points out they're called Klimakleber in German.
I wasn't going to butcher that.
Well, it means climate gluer. And these have to be my favorite protesters because they're the ones who actually super glue themselves onto things. Have you ever seen them do it?
No. All I heard about was tomatoes being thrown.
Oh, my God. It's fantastic.
What is this?
So, for example, in London, a few of them super glued themselves to double-decker buses a few years back. Wow. And then, they can't come off. They've got to have, first responders come and get them loose.
That's very Jane Fonda.
I just love it when protesters chain themselves to things or glue themselves to stuff. And
would you ever chain yourself to a tree, Matt, to save it?
I don't think so, because for me, that's like kind of wasting the time of first responders who could be saving someone's life, or, I think it's hilarious, but I love trees.
Too.
Don't get me wrong.
Me too.
Like, I'm a fan of the climate. I just want Ford to bring back big inch V8s and put them in the F-150.
These aren't mutually exclusive goals.
Yeah.
They can't. I mean, I think we can have both.
Exactly. It's not for everybody. Look at the Raptor R, right? It's a great truck with a supercharged 5-liter V8, which some people need, but not everyone needs. And
not everyone wants it.
Exactly.
Honestly.
And what they do is they just price it at like $100,000.
Fine.
So
fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Price control.
Okay. So we got another email.
Yes. This one from Matt.
Exactly. Not me, right?
No,
but
different Matt.
A different Matt. At first, like, I'm reading this and he takes issue with my complaints about the Rivian software because I didn't like the software experience. I love the Rivian design.
Sure.
I love the way it sits. I appreciate the way it drives, but I just didn't like the fact that it doesn't get satellite radio from a satellite. The key card doesn't really work.
Those are valid. I actually think those are valid points.
Yeah, I had a number of issues with it. It doesn't have Apple CarPlay, which I don't care that much about if you have something better. Like GM has a far better product, so it doesn't bother me, but Rivian doesn't. So in any case, he says he could not disagree more. And he has a Kia EV 5, or no, he has a Hyundai Ioniq 5, which is the sister brand. And we were saying the Kia EV9 is better, but he says the Ioniq 5 software is... Well, he said it sucks, basically.
No, he actually... Oh.
Right.
Okay, I see. I'm reading it again. You're right.
Yeah, he says it doesn't remember any of his regen settings.
No dog mode.
I don't know what dog mode is, but I hope...
either.
I'm going to write back to Matt and find out what that is. Bluetooth pairing takes 45 seconds, which is way too long.
No, and that's actually a huge improvement. I remember being in some Lexus and Acuras back in the day that, like, on a 15-minute drive... You won't have time to connect the Bluetooth. It takes that long.
Right. Well,
so 45 seconds is still too long.
It's still too long in today's
We've made
day
progress.
And age. So anyway, he loves the Rivian software, at least compared to Tesla, Kia, Hyundai, etc. But his PS is my favorite part.
The PS really got us because Matt, I mean, God love you, but I'm a New Yorker, dude. I lived in Manhattan for almost 20 years. So Matt makes the case that Matt the writer makes the case that Matt, the co-host, Matt Miller, talks over me too much. But he had recently listened to a podcast about stuff you should know, and the podcast said that East Coast New Yorkers tend to talk over people, and so that must be why Matt Miller is talking over me on the podcast. But I'm a New Yorker too. And Matt doesn't live in New York, actually.
Here's the thing. Right, I'm from Ohio.
Matt actually doesn't live in New York.
And I live in Scarsdale. But I will say that this has been a problem for me my whole life. I don't just talk over you too much. I do it to my wife. I do it to my mom. I have 3 little brothers, and I talk over them constantly.
You probably had to be heard.
I mean, maybe that's why. But it's something that I've been working on, and I don't want to do.
You know what? It's sort of it's a good bad combo, because the other thing is I love listening. This is why I'm a journalist. I love it. If I am talking to somebody interesting, I will just listen and pepper in a question or two, and I'm just loving listening. So part of it is, I am not a trained TV personality like Matt is. So we're actually coming from 2 sort of different backgrounds, where my background is I ask a question and then I shut up and listen. And Matt is a little bit more bombastic, which makes you great at your job. Would you say that's fair, Matt?
I think that's very kind of you. And you know what? It's a complaint we've gotten since we started this podcast well over a year ago. It's something that my wife also, she listens every week and says she hates it when I talk over you, because she wants to hear what you have to say, just like I think a lot of our listeners. So it's something that I need to deal with. I have been working on it. I thought I had improved to some extent. I will say that last Saturday I started my Wegovy. I took my first shot.
Oh my goodness!
Of this GLP-1.
I admire you so much for talking about this, Matt.
Well, yeah, it's not. I mean, I talk about it on TV all the time as well. So I obviously I want to lose a few pounds. I really want to lower my blood sugar, reduce my chance of heart attack, and a number of other things. But I read. I've been like deep into it since I injected myself for the first time. And by the way, the injection doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt at all.
Where did you inject yourself?
I did it in my stomach, which is what I'm hoping to lose here. But I didn't even realize I had done it. I thought maybe I missed it. I didn't push the button right or something, but it actually doesn't hurt. But the cool thing I found is apparently the semaglutide, whatever the chemicals, have an anti-inflammatory effect on your brain. So a lot of users experience a focus or a clarity, which I'm looking forward to.
Okay, let me ask a question to be the devil's advocate. Is that newfound clarity, is it possible that is a side effect from doing fewer other substances that may be clouding the clarity?
Yes. So that's another thing I found. Like people who, for example, smoke weed a lot, when
I'm not saying you do.
No, when they start taking Wegovy or Ozempic or a Zepbound or whatever, they don't have an urge to do that as much, to smoke weed as much, or take gummies, or drink alcohol, or any of these other things. Smoke cigarettes. Stuff yourself with Haagen-Dazs,
other things.
Exactly. So it kind of apparently curbs your cravings beyond just food, and it eliminates also what's known as food noise, which I have a lot of. But food noise isn't just about food. It's like so many other things. Like I need a smoke, I need a beer, I need a this, I need a that. And maybe even, for example, using your cell phone like all the time, hoping for that dopamine hit. And so I think it's pretty cool. It's like an experiment for me, and I'll see how it goes.
Thank you for sharing that information with us, for trusting us to hold that. We are here along with you on the journey, and we wish you the best as long as you are healthy and happy. I am healthy and happy. So
Thank you. Thank you to all of you.
Yeah, it's nice to hear.
By the way, write in to us. Our email address is hotpursuit@bloomberg.net. Still ahead, we welcome Tesla's chief designer, Franz Von Holzhausen. I'm Matt Miller along with Hannah Elliott. There's more Hot Pursuit right after this.
The man needs almost no introduction. Franz Von Holzhausen, chief designer of Tesla since 2008. Thank you for joining us. And also diner designer, because the last time I ran into you, Franz, was at the Tesla diner, which is very cool looking, I have to say. That was really fun to see you there.
Yeah, it was great to see you guys. Great to meet you. Happy to be here and see what's on your mind.
So I have to ask, how's business at the diner? Are you still there like every day, or has it tapered off a little bit for you? Okay.
No, I think we have a really great team there, and the design of the diner was really about how do we bring a future vibe to charging? How do we make the charging experience exciting again? And looking at the location in Hollywood, it made sense to bring a bit of a movie theme into it as well. And so the idea of come in, charge, grab a bite to eat, catch a movie, just had a really cool vibe to it. And we wanted to complement that with an experience in the building and the location that really made you feel like you're stepping into something new and fresh and a positive and a glimpse into where our future is. But it's, we're all around you right at the moment.
It makes me a little bit jealous that you have it out there in LA and that Hannah got to go. It's always the case that Hannah gets the good assignments and I have to sit here in the studio. But any plans to open a diner in New York?
Yeah, we've been talking about, diners located around the world. And so I think it's just a matter of stay tuned. We're checking it out.
Well, I have to say, I thought it was so cool how an automaker thinks about building real authentic community with its fans, with its customers, with its buyers. It's nice to see. Obviously, Tesla runs very deep for the people who do love the brand, and I really did see that. It was like a celebration. And I love that, just the idea that you guys are doing something to try to, I give back to your customers isn't the wrong word, but to try to do something fun. Obviously, it's for everybody, but it certainly did feel like a Tesla hub of people who really love the brand.
Yeah, and it kind of in these trying times, I guess is the best way you could call it, especially here in LA. It's really great to see the community coming together, and it felt like a space where you could be free and comfortable and get a great meal, sustainably sourced, and just enjoy the time and be around other folks that are like-minded, really thinking about the future and where we're headed from a sustainability perspective. And, I think that, like you touched on it, that sense of community is really strong and powerful there. And, complement that with great food and a great time. I don't see why you wouldn't want to go there.
Franz, I want to go back before we get to the future and talk about the beginning, because I have long felt that the Model S is incredibly elegant and doesn't seem to age, right? It's got to be 15 years old, and it still could be a new car. And that's not something you could say about Audis, BMWs, Mercedes. So how did you go about designing that? And tell us about the beginning with Elon and the idea to do the supercharger networks and the whole start of, I hear it came together very quickly.
I mean, I don't know how much time we have. This could be, this is like a book in itself. But I think the abridged version is really when we started, we talked a lot about the technology and how advanced the technology was. We saw a lot of, if you recall that time, 2007, 2008, 2009, there was a lot of turmoil going on in the world. But we also saw the rise of EV and hybrid, and a lot of companies and a lot of people were really looking at, you have to really stand out and be unique and be over the top, kind of shout really loud from the top of the hill that you're trying to do something sustainable and better. And, I think the products that we were seeing were pretty extreme. And we felt like we have a great technology. Let's approach it from a refined perspective. Let's look beyond just the immediate impact of, bringing an EV into the marketplace, but really look at it from a long-term perspective. And how do you get somebody that past the early adopters will continue to purchase the product and own the product and feel good about it or aspire to it long-term? And so I think with that approach, we looked at a little bit more classical design language, something that was clean and elegant and refined, that I think it didn't have to make a big, huge splash at an impact level, but over time, obviously we've seen that it's been able to sustain itself. And I think, just classic proportions, clean, elegant lines. The language is really derived around this idea of efficiency. And when you're starting a brand or you're starting a company like Tesla was at that time, there was no library of history to draw from. So we had the opportunity to really kind of create our own history.
It's interesting, by the way, Franz, that you say that the language is around efficiency. One of the people who listen to this podcast wrote in and asked which you consider most important when designing a vehicle, the beauty or the aesthetics, I guess, the drag coefficient or the ease of manufacturing, because you've got to consider all three of those things, right?
Yeah, all three are equally important. I think at the end of the day, the customer cares a little bit less about the ease of manufacturing, but if we don't take that into consideration, then it's really difficult for us to bring the product to the customer. So I think there's that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember back in those early days, being with Elon, with him taking me through a prototype, a Model S prototype, and he was talking about that like a computer on wheels.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I had ever heard anybody make that comparison or connection. And even then, he was talking about how, no, this is going to be like a seamless thing that's also connected to your phone. And it just sounded really different. I mean, it was completely
like what
unheard
you
of before.
want, right? In a vehicle.
Completely. And so from a design perspective, were you approaching the design as this is a completely new paradigm for us? This is even a computer? Or were you still, I mean, you mentioned having nothing to draw on. So were you thinking of it as a car or something different?
Well, at the end of the day, we knew it was going to be a car, right? But I think that perspective allowed us to open up the range of possibilities and really explore beyond the traditional. And I think that's kind of getting back to this first principles perspective where, we're not following just what, like lemmings off the cliff, what everybody else is doing. We're really looking at how do we solve the problem. And we just saw that there's a lot of consistent kind of complacent and normalcy in the way vehicles were being presented to the public. And we looked at, technology in the computer space and phone space and electronics just moving so quickly and being able to adapt really quickly. And that's what, the consumer, us have in our life. And the vehicle always felt like it was 10 years behind all that. So we really wanted to bring the vehicle into the same level, if not as advanced, if not more advanced than, state-of-the-art electronics at the time. And with that, we're able to, continue to evolve and upgrade. And, we brought over-the-air updating to the vehicles really early. And, that's allowed vehicles like the Model S to still stay relevant. There's so many people that I bump into or talk to that own one of the very first Model S's. But because we keep the firmware and the software refreshing and up to date and current, they don't feel the need to have to upgrade. The car is, it's still great right now and it still feels relevant.
By the way, a lot of the cars that you've worked on really do age well, because I've read that you worked on the new Beetle and you worked on the Pontiac Solstice, which is one of my favorites. I love that, by the way, Hannah, in the Dax Shepard movie, Hit and Run. And then
I haven't seen it.
And the Model S. But I wonder, do you think the Cybertruck is going to age the same way? Because it's obviously a much more controversial design than the other three.
I'm really curious to see how Cybertruck evolves. I think when it came out, it shocked everybody. I think nobody really believed that we were serious or that we were going to be able to do something like that. And yet, we put it into production basically as we showed it. And I think it also, helped inspire a little bit of a movement in the design world, at least in the automotive world. And you see it in products as well. It got people, feeling like, okay, we can break out and we can be different and it's okay. And the Cybertruck is still a truck. It's still a great truck. The underpinnings of it are not fake. It's not just aesthetically different and falls apart on every other metric. It's, our direction was we have to make a truck that drives and handles like a sports car, but has the functionality of a pickup truck that you would expect and exceed on those levels. And then, with that, we were able to bring an aesthetic that was different based on a manufacturing principle that helped us bring the product to light in a different way, where we were putting the toughness on the outside. We're creating like an exoskeleton in the vehicle, using different materials that didn't require paint, so that's a much more sustainable process. We don't have the big stamping requirements in the factory, and so the process is different, and the end result is a really unique aesthetic which I think, does it last the test of time? I think historically, looking back, hopefully I see that it sparked a movement that allowed everybody to start to think a little bit differently about products that we create and things that we put in our lives.
You're listening to Hot Pursuit from Bloomberg Radio. I'm Matt Miller, along with Hannah Elliott. We'll have more of our conversation with Tesla's chief designer, Franz Von Holzhausen, right after the break. This is Bloomberg Hot Pursuit. I'm Matt Miller, along with Hannah Elliott. Now here's more of our conversation with Franz Von Holzhausen, chief designer at Tesla.
Franz, would you ever consider making a smaller version of the Cybertruck, or even an SUV Cybertrucky type thing, something smaller that might have more volume potentially?
Those are definitely all things that we've considered. I think, wait and see is probably maybe the best way.
Darn it, I hate that answer.
It's tough. We're working on so many really innovative and fun and great things into the future. And I would love to be able to share them, but
I would like a 3-row, like a Tahoe competitor.
Oh God!
Listen, you're sitting in what appears to be a multi-seat vehicle. Is that the Robovan?
I'm in the Robus. Yes.
The Robus. Okay, so tell us about that. It's like a new mass transit vehicle. Are there plans to show it anytime soon?
Yeah, we showed this vehicle almost a year ago now at our 1010 event, which is really based around autonomy and the future of transport. And this is it's a 14 passenger, up to 20 with standing room, autonomous van vehicle that really just transforms the vision of what it means to be moved around. This is an idea of urban transport where it's not quite as personal as an individual cybercab robotaxi experience, but gets cost per mile way down, allows the customer to have a fare for 10 or 20 cents a mile, and really unlocks the ability for transport for people that maybe don't have the wherewithal, the ability to afford transportation now. This gets them rather than bus stop to bus stop. This gets them closer to their destination, closer to their pickup spot, and just frees up transport for underprivileged folks. I think it's really going to revolutionize transportation, and that's one of our goals. And we also wanted to do it in a fresh, futuristic way so that you really feel like you're stepping into a better world, a better experience, a more sustainable world. And just, I think there's something about feeling good in the way that you're transported. It's the same as, fashion or the house that you live in. You feel good about the things that you put around you. You feel good about when something is designed well, it looks futuristic, it has an emotional connection that you can feel positive about. And that's the experience we're trying to get.
Is that something that we would see in the U.S., or is that for more, very dense urban centers? So that would be for the U.S.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, everybody loves Waymos here in Beverly Hills. They're very excited about those. So there seems
our
like
cybercab and our robotaxi experience is coming to LA soon. So
I got to ask about the handle story that Bloomberg wrote about. The door handles are flat on Teslas and the interior buttons are electric. I was recently stuck in a Corvette, which has the same kind of thing, until somebody at the parking garage pointed out that I could find the emergency latch. You have a similar system.
Yes.
NHTSA's looking into this now. Apparently Beijing is looking into it. Have you considered a redesign or a fix for these issues?
We actually have a mechanical release that's, basically right at the electronic one too, and we're combining the two. So, in the moment that you're in a panic situation, the muscle memory to go to, what is right there. So you just pull a little bit further on the lever and you have the mechanical release. So that's something that we're working on. Yeah. And it's in the cars now.
All right. So if there is then a China ban, you're ready to roll that out so that
we're working on
actually the ban, I guess the Chinese issue is the flat outer door handle. So would you do something? Would you make a change? Like, Ferraris have that little crease you can reach into. Is there some idea about that on the outside?
Yeah, we're working on it right now and just looking at the details of the regulation, if and when that happens, and we'll have a really good solution for that. I'm not worried about that.
It makes sense. I know it's one thing for us adults to know that, but for kids, it's a little bit different to expect a kid to know how to go for a manual release.
Yeah, so the idea of combining the electronic one and the manual one together into one button, I think, makes a lot of sense. It really helps to, the muscle memory of reaching for something every day is there. And so you intuitively just grab the same thing and you're free.
By the way, Franz, the design language is very clear across the sexy models. And the truck is obviously a departure from the S, the 3, the X, and the Y. But do you stick with that design language for future, 15 years later, 20 years later? Or is there a point where you guys decide to change it up for the cars that you're making?
I mean, I think what we're actually looking at is that every product that we're working on really deserves its own unique identity and language. And we don't want to pre-prescribe a language to that. I think there's also making sure that we're relevant and forward-looking and, not getting stale in terms of the delivery of the products aesthetically. So we look at every product as if it's unique and potentially has its own identity and going forward. So, I'm excited about the stuff that we're working on, and I think, you'll start to see it pretty soon.
This is an interesting idea that I've actually been following a bit with other automakers too. For instance, Mercedes has decided to go back to the roller style volume control on the steering wheel. Just the bigger idea that sometimes the most futuristic or advanced thing isn't actually what consumers want. And it's been really interesting to see, sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's still progress. But I have seen I was thinking the other day about BMW's big display key that was like a computer screen in your hand. They realized nobody wants this and they stopped selling it. It's interesting that, maybe some tech is answering a question that nobody's asking.
Yeah, I think, we're really looking at a world of autonomy and how do we best serve the customer in an autonomous experience. So, every car that Tesla sells right now has the ability to be completely autonomous as the firmware continues to evolve and develop. And I think, so it's easier and quicker to change software than it is hardware. And we want to make sure that the hardware that we have is really focused on an autonomous future where you're not driving and the car is driving you. And what are you doing with your time? What's your experience? How are you doing? The meetings, the leisure time, the movie watching, game playing, relaxing, basically in your journey. And what is the quote unquote hardware that you have around you in your vehicle? That's where our headspace is. So we're constantly looking at that future state of a world where in the very near future where you don't have to drive at all. If and if you do, it's maybe very little. You've
Except
also, at the time you want to drive, you still have a great vehicle to be able to do that.
You've mentioned sustainability also a couple times, Franz. Obviously, that's I would think at the forefront of Tesla's raison d'etre, really. And you've also mentioned that you want to design a car that's maybe easy or not expensive to produce so that more people can get it. And you want to I know that you want to make a lower cost vehicle. Is it harder now with these steel and aluminum tariffs? Because you build one of the most American cars that there is in terms of production, but you still have to import those pieces, right?
I think, we're looking at how do we become or continue to be the most American manufactured vehicles. And ultimately we just want to bring a great experience at an affordable rate. It's, how do we design into that space? What are the material choices that we use? How do we leave a better future for, this planet, making sensible choices on sustainable materials, et cetera. And I think, we are an American company. People tend to forget that. And I think, being locally sourced is really important to us. And we're continuing to just explore how do we maximize on that level. And I think, we have an incredibly creative team that's really looking at, sometimes bringing the impossible at a lower cost, the aspirational at a lower cost. And that's, always what we try to achieve.
All right. Franz, I know we're run out of time with you. I have one philosophical question, though. You've been at Tesla for so long. What is the key to your longevity? I mean, you've been through thick and thin. What's your secret sauce?
I don't know if there's a secret sauce, but I think, we have a really great team. We're focused on, delivering an exciting future, a sustainable future that we all believe in. And I think when we, continue to bring products that are aesthetically beautiful, that are aspirational, and we figure out how to do that in a sustainable and affordable way, then, I think Tesla continues on its mission. And, I think, we have a team that's really focused on doing that at a super high level where every detail counts, every millimeter counts. And, the moment I stop doing that, I guess that's maybe when.
Franz, it was great to get some time with you. I really appreciate it. Obviously, we could go on for hours and hours, but I know you have a lot to do. So thank you very much. Franz Von Holzhausen there from Tesla.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
All right. Our thanks to Franz Von Holzhausen for joining us. He is the chief designer at Tesla.
That does it for this week's show. Remember to follow and subscribe to Hot Pursuit on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen. I would also say put in Bloomberg Hot Pursuit if you're searching and you're not finding it right away. Bloomberg Hot Pursuit on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen. You can also send us your comments. Email us at hotpursuit@bloomberg.net.
And check out Hannah's columns and stories on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. Go there for car reviews, events, and stories you won't find anywhere else. Find it all at Bloomberg.com/pursuits/autos. I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott. We'll be back in your podcast feed again next week.